Welcome to the Combative Nerds Podcast. Join us while we break balls and try to outwit each other at every turn while debating all things nerdom and trying to make sense of this world. Look, I'm not gonna lie, this is a Herculean task and I'm not sure we have enough brain power to do so. At the very least, we can laugh and offend each other through the process. Thanks for sharing your day with us. Now on to our show. Hey, what's going on? This is Raiderlance and
IceyEyedGnome.
First off, please like, subscribe, join us on this journey, comment. We'd really love some comments. Anything you could do to help us out, we would truly appreciate it. So, IG, man, I haven't talked to you in a long minute. How you been, brother?
Good, man. Just getting through the holidays and it's been slow at work and just doing some side project type things. Just kind of hanging out. How have you been?
Not too bad. It's been pretty cold here. I mean, yesterday it was, I think, raining and 70 degrees. So I had to put on a jacket, clearly.
Oh,
And
yeah. That's cold.
That comment's coming from IEG sending me a picture of, what was it, 14 degrees the other day.
No, it was negative. It got down to -4 degrees.
Negative.
It was
Christ.
1 degree with a wind chill or something. I think it was low.
Okay, so I have two follow-up questions to that. One, how do you keep your pipes from busting? And two, are you still wearing flip-flops and shorts?
So, yes, to the
To both.
latter question. So I wear shorts regardless of what time of year it is. My legs don't get cold.
You wonder why I call you Shrek sometimes.
Yeah.
How do you not feel
My
that?
legs don't get cold because they're like 100% pure muscle.
Yeah.
So like, there's like nothing to get cold on the lower part of my body. It's just all calves.
Or do they not get cold because you've lost all feeling in your legs from walking around in sub-zero weather?
Probably a combination of both. But yeah, like I don't know, man. Like for somebody who lived a large part of their life in Florida and generally the South, like I love cold weather so much and I cannot take the heat. So for me, a cold day is just like a normal day. Like I love it.
I love the cold.
But the pipes bursting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just chime in. I love the cold until I hit 40. So I completely understand. When I was 20 to 30, I was always sweating. I was just always running hot. Age 40, man, I'm like, I understand cardigans now. I kind of get it. I'm not going to do it, but I understand. So I apologize. Pipes.
Yeah. So pipes are weird because like housing's different everywhere. But like in the South, we have a lot of homes, a lot of the newer homes especially are all slab. You still have the occasional builds and stuff that have the crawl space. Mm-hmm. But like a lot of the newer builds are slab because it's cheaper, it's more efficient and that kind of stuff. It's a pain in the ass if you ever want to add or change piping. But with slab foundations, especially in the winter, it's a lot more difficult for your pipes to freeze or burst just because there's the pressure of the concrete. It's underground. So ground temperatures are typically warmer than air temperatures.
Sure.
So you have less of the pipes bursting. It does happen, and it can happen, and especially on plumbing on exterior walls. That's like the most common.
It's interesting that we're talking about this, and I'm gonna make a little bit of a right turn here. Me and IG, we're actually going to talk about a couple of the differences between living in California versus the South and some of the misconceptions. In California, clearly we're never dealing with frozen pipes. I mean, in Southern California, we're not dealing with frozen pipes. So all of this is new to me. I thought slab foundations were created to prevent from earthquakes because if you had crawl space, your house was going to flatten. So I had no idea that was the actual reason for slab foundations.
Yeah, well, the actual reason was like it's just cheaper. It's a cheaper way to build.
Yeah, I remember. I think I actually said this to IEG. It shows you how freaking myopic I am being from Southern California, living there my entire life. I think when you told me you had a slab foundation, I was very surprised. And I said, wait a minute, don't all you guys have basements because of tornadoes? So I think that was one of my misconceptions of the South.
That's not I mean, like, tornadoes are a thing, but, like, we're not, like, Midwest.
That was a reasonable misconception of the South.
We're, like, so I'm on the East Coast, so, like, I'm more concerned about, like, hurricane weather creating tornadoes
Right.
than just tornadoes. Like, Midwest is, like, all tornadoes and stuff, but living where I live, it's more like hurricane or tropical depression weather, right? It's like high winds, tearing off shingles, it's hailstorms, that kind of stuff. But yeah, not all of us have basements.
Yeah, we don't get any. We get earthquakes and we get wildfires because it's so dry, and freaking state of California misuses the funds for fire prevention. But that is a whole different story.
Yeah, that was like one of the misconceptions I have about California is like something's always on fire or the ground is always shaking. Like that's what I hear all the time.
So every year the ground is on fire. Yes, not all year long.
Okay.
The earthquakes actually don't happen very often. And I should say, if you're a seismologist and you're looking at the ticker tape, yes, it's happening all the time, technically speaking. My definition of it's not happening all the time, do you feel it? And then more importantly, do you care? So when we have like a 4.0 around here, you'll feel it, but you don't care. Most Southern Californians people, I laugh, I like them. But I was in Southern California where a couple big ones happened and they destroyed some homes. And, you had the horrific one in San Francisco a long time ago where people are getting smashed under bridges. I mean, you got to go back 20, 30 years for something like that. Now, eventually, my house would probably be beachfront property because we're going to lose a large portion of California when the big one does happen. So
the big one.
We're just enjoying our time, and it's really not a big deal. No, the fires are a big deal. No matter where you are in California, unless you're in the urban jungle, like a huge city center with tons of concrete, there's a lot of hills, and a lot of people love living in the hills and having a lot of brush, and everything gets dry. So I do not live near a hill, and I almost got evacuated once because they push out the evacuation range, and I'm going to be wrong on this one, but a good 3 miles, 2.5 miles or something like that. And I think it's because of the smoke inhalation dangers or potential, and not necessarily the actual fire. So I've almost got evacuated once or twice. My mom she lives in the hills with a lot of brush. She's almost been evacuated a couple of times. Yeah, every year I have a friend who's getting evacuated from something. And it's because we suck. And
that's insane.
Okay, I'm just going to go there. You would think with the amount of gardeners we have, gardening potential in Southern California, you would think our forest services would be outstanding, right? But for some reason, they just don't want to pay for forest services. And here's what I mean by forest services. The way California is set up is either prisoners are doing a lot of the firefighting and forest services, or they have other hired groups. And what they do is they create, what do they call them? Fire breaks. 20, 30 feet of clearing all the brush between the homes and the brush. And so you have like this space that the fire hopefully can't jump across. But I mean, California's big. That is a lot of land, and a lot of homeowners don't want to do it or don't want to pay for it. And HOAs are the same way. And so it just seems like, all these people want to build nice houses up in the hills, but they don't want to pay for the fire breaks.
Yeah.
So it is super common. I think I had 3 friends this past summer get evacuated, all local near me. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's like the other thing. Like one of the other misconceptions that I and other people have had is like it's always sunny. It's like a lot of people think Seattle gets like all the rain. You know what I mean? But it's like it's always sunny. There's never any rain. There's never any whatever. I know I've heard on the radio more times than not that, like, California's asking residents to like not water their gardens, not wash their cars, not use water, period.
It's totally true. No, none of that is a misconception.
Okay.
It is mostly sunny. We will have this year, I don't know, 15 days of rain. And I'm not talking heavy rain. I'm talking moderate to light rain. There's like 2 or 3 days of heavy rain. Now I'm in Orange County, Southern California, and LA County, Southern California. So I'm sure if you go along the beach or you go further south, San Diego is much different climate. Perfect weather is San Diego weather. They'll get a lot more rain. Temperature is going to be a lot cooler. But LA, Orange County, still nice, but you're basically bathing in smog, right? So there's always an orange haze in our skyline.
Like further up north towards like redwood wine territory and that kind of stuff, closer to like Washington, do they get more?
Oh God, yes.
Rain?
Yeah. So I'm not a meteorologist. I could be completely wrong, but there's going to be a lot more moisture because there's a lot more trees up there, right? All of Southern California is pretty much either clear cut or I don't know if it's desert or sub-desert. So everything is dry. Like if you go up to Northern California or you go to something outside of California, there's actual forests and there's hills that are green. Our hills are brown. And I didn't understand that until I would travel abroad and I went to England and I was riding a train. I was like, what the fuck are those? And everybody's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, all the hills, they're so green. It took a couple minutes for me to explain, like, aren't you supposed to have like, look like a Western? There should be like a little dust blowing and a couple of thistles and
tumbleweeds just rolling through England.
Palm trees, that's our greenery, right? Yeah, sure, you get trees and this and that, but everything's dry. And they're like, no, man. Like morning dew was like a mystical thing.
Really?
I mean, you get it, but it's not like you're gonna walk on all this stuff that's wet all the time. It's
that's
dry as hell out here. That's why it's so nice.
Yeah, that's like weird for me because growing up, like I grew up. This is a topic for another conversation entirely, but I grew up on like a farm, and so like one of the things that I learned when I was growing up was like the morning dew and how to utilize it, right? Like how to harvest it, because you can harvest like morning dew to purify it for drinking water, or you can use it as a magnifying glass, or to start a fire and that kind of stuff. Like that's like one of the things that like I was taught. Not everybody's taught that, right?
I've heard of all of that. I'm sure the Boy Scouts teach all of that. If you want the perfect encapsulation of what California actually is, minus all the water we're pumping from out of state, Google Joshua Tree Forest.
Okay.
And you will say, after looking at the pictures, oh no, sir, you have mislabeled that. That is Joshua Tree Desert. Now we do have forests. Don't get me wrong. Once you go into like past Central California is basically the breadbasket of the West Coast and a lot of the United States, the grapevine. But once you get into Northern California, now you're just straight up forest. So we got everything here. But Southern California, nah, man, we're desert. And the only reason why we can exist is they're pumping so much water into all of this concrete to the point where, yes, it is true. You go places. And then LA County, of course, is going to be the worst out of all of them. But yeah, there's only certain days you can water down your sidewalk. You can wash your car anytime. But I think there's times that you can water, meaning like if you're going to water your lawn, please do it from like 6 to 8 a.m. or in the evening.
That's when it's less likely to dry up.
Yeah, exactly. And the cities actually pay people to run around and give tickets for water use.
Wow.
In LA County, they wanted to limit water consumption to the point where they're telling people how many gallons their house should use per day. We import all our water. There is not supposed to be this many people living in California. It's a desert. It's insane.
That is insane.
Yeah, it's insane. And you don't want to see what LA pays for water. I knew somebody who owned a laundromat, and it was a fairly big laundromat. They were paying $10,000 a month on water.
Good evening.
When they told me that, I went, I'm sorry, you misspoke. It's $10,000 a year. And they were like, no, a month. And it's just, they have a corrupt company called DWP running it. It's horrible, especially in LA County. It's a hellhole.
Not to get into like specifics, but like in the general area where you live, how much do you mind telling me how much you pay for water at your home, generally speaking?
Sure. We are on a 2-month billing cycle. So the billing cycle is, I think, about $135.
Okay.
For every 2.
That's not bad.
It's not bad, but I don't have a yard or a swimming pool. So if you throw all that extra stuff in, I mean, it could get pricey.
So we have like a fairly large home, and like we have a sprinkler system, and especially in the summers when I'm washing a car and that kind of stuff, we probably pay between 60 and 80 a month, which is still a lot because there's a lot of people who are only paying like 35, 40.
Yeah, but you got a big
But I
yard.
think it's because of the neighborhood that we live in. Yeah.
Oh, it could be that.
I think it's the neighborhood that we live in, the amount of acreage and
Yeah. Yeah, I have a friend. They live on a 1/3 acre, which is considered massive over here. And they're at the point where they just let their grass die, or they're going to consider painting it just because they don't want to water that thing. And I think they've already turned half of their land into drought resistant foliage. Have you heard of that niche?
Oh yeah.
Where they
Yeah, it's basically like a Zen garden.
essentially what they basically do is they use a lot of, I call it bark, but what's the term? The wood shavings the pretty wood shavings?
Mulch.
There you go. They use a lot of mulch. So like 70% of your yard is mulch, and then they'll plant a drought resistant plant or two in the middle of them and move them around to make them look like it's organized. So
they're like high temperature evergreens, right? Like they only need like 3 drops of water,
something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff in the cactus family without thorns.
Right.
A lot of just dry grass, It's pretty horrible. We're not supposed to be living here. This is going to end badly.
I've thought about just planting fake grass where I live just so that I don't have to cut the shit like every week.
Yeah.
Because I'll cut it and then it'll rain, and then 3 days later it's like a foot tall, and I have to go out there and cut it again and trim it all up and try and make it look pretty. But yeah, one of the other questions that I had for you that you kind of touched on slightly was the smog, because that's another big thing that we all hear about.
Totally true.
Out here about smog of California.
Totally true.
It's just always cloudy. You never see the stars. Yeah. It's just Dust Bowl.
It's like living in Isengard in the Lord of the Rings.
Isengard. That's one way to put it. Yeah.
Okay, so of course downtown LA, and then going out, it gets better. But there are many evenings when the sun is setting, the sky turns orange, reddish orange, just because of all the smog going through. If you are ever driving up in the hills and you can look down into a basin, you can visibly see all the smog. And when I say see all the smog, it's like, imagine someone's using a smoker in front of you and you're looking through it. You can see through all the mist and the haze, but it definitely colors your vision from far away. We get health alerts every couple weeks. Not good quality. Maybe you shouldn't do physical activity outside. You always live next to a freeway in Southern California, and you're lucky if it's just one freeway. I remember when I lived in LA, I lived between 3 major freeways going into because I live close to the heart of downtown for years. We had the 5, the 10, and the 101, and they all bordered. So we were in a triangle in between all of those freeways. That I'm sure that was good for the lungs.
Does the 101 go all the way up California? Because I hear about that frequently.
The 5 for sure goes all the way up. I'm not sure about the 101. Okay. I know the 101 usually goes straight into downtown.
Yeah, that's just one of those things that I've heard mentioned in movies, TV frequently. Take the 101 to whatever.
Referring to downtown and Los Angeles proper. So, basically a smoker. You're essentially a smoker if you live in Southern California. You're going to have allergies and you're a smoker.
One of the other points that I had was traffic jams. Anytime California is pictured, Los Angeles, Hollywood, whatever, is pictured in a movie or TV show, somebody's always stuck in traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a thing, or is it just here? Because traffic jams happen here, but it's not that standstill traffic every day, all day.
So I think you have to qualify traffic jams, right? If you're talking about an accident, it is a different type of traffic than a sporting event ending and everybody leaving. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
A true traffic jam is there's an accident, there's something keeping the flow of traffic from moving. California isn't necessarily like that all the time, right? Of course, if there's an actual accident, then it's horrific. You have to think of California traffic as a sporting event that just got let out. It is just a mass of people that clogs the arteries that are our freeways. And, what's worse? at least accidents go away. But a continual clog of people, it's horrible. And we don't have, we do have public transportation, but Southern California is spread out. So all that public transportation doesn't go 20, 30 miles. It's not like New York. So when I was younger, I was in LA and I would drive to Orange County daily. And it could take me 35 to 40 minutes straight drive, hour and a half when it was raining, or 2 hours if there's an accident. Now that same drive, it's going to take me an hour if there's no accident, if there's no rain.
Wow.
So, and then rush hour used to be a thing, right? Oh, people in the morning and the people in the evening. It's all rush hour now. There's no alleviation of the amount of traffic. So there's a freeway that's horrific called the 91 freeway. What it basically does is it goes from LA and maybe North Orange County, and it goes to what they call the Inland Empire. Basically, all the people who have jobs in LA or Orange County but can't afford it. Whatever they built it as, it wasn't enough with the increase in population over the next 20 years. So that freeway is always a parking lot. There's nothing you can do. And they put an express pass in there, 2 lanes where you can pay a toll to jump on there. And it's like $7 each way. And so,
Jesus.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Not like a month, like
no,
every time.
And they drop it down to like,
oh my God.
They drop it down to like $3 or $4.
That's like New York prices.
Yeah. Yeah. Traffic is that bad, especially where you're going. That's why telecommuting was so huge in California. That's why all these people were pushing for it, because 1, you save on the gas. 2, you're saving an hour to an hour and a half commute time each way. It's massive.
Yeah. I mean, if you have an 8-hour-a-day job and you're spending 2 hours like trying to get to work, you know what I mean? Like that's a huge portion of your day.
Yeah. A lot of people have to commute in. Orange County is one of those type of counties where a lot of people commute in for work, but just can't live here. So they drive out and live elsewhere. Los Angeles is weird. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of bad neighborhoods in Los Angeles County. So you could live there, but you wouldn't want to live there. So LA is a lot different. But yeah, I don't think you've told me one misconception yet.
Well, these are just general misconceptions that like I've had, and I've kind of been working my way up. So like we'll go to one of the bigger ones. Like we'll touch on that one, which is everybody in California. This is one that you've proven is incorrect, but everybody that lives in California, for the most part, is liberal. It's like a super liberal state.
So that is not a misconception. And my views would be considered liberal by a conservative standard, right? So I am a conservative for California standards, but I'm technically a moderate. Like, I'm okay with prostitution. I'm okay with legalizing drugs. I don't care if abortion is legal. There's no way that could ever be a conservative value. Where if you go into, the Bible Belt or a lot of the South, or, what they would call the red states. Now, I think parts of Central California are conservative. I'm not too sure about Northern. Southern California, either the military base is a little bit around San Diego, but the rest of it's all liberal. And then Orange County used to be the stronghold conservative area of Southern California. Now, LA County's socialist, right? There's no way around it. I think they want to bring back COVID mandates. It's that bad in LA County. Orange County is a little bit different, but it's getting worse. And the reason why it's getting worse is there's a lot more lower socioeconomic communities rising up. And they moved in after the 2008 housing crash. And so it kind of changed the socioeconomic dynamics of Orange County. And I think a couple years ago was the first year they had Democrat congressperson in I don't know how many years. Historically, California also was a red or Republican state. So California being liberal is a newer dynamic, and it's only getting worse. And it's perpetuated by a lot of the educational system. They're just sending these kids to the UCs and the Cal State systems, indoctrinating them, turning them into liberal or worse off socialist. And, now they're getting jobs. Now they're getting positions of authority and getting into politics.
These damn young people.
Yeah, so I will be out of California, hopefully, once my kids go to college. It's a tough sell in California because we have one of the best public educational systems with the Cal States and the UCs, University of California is what they call them. They're fantastic schools, ranked very high in the nation comparative to other states. The problem is your kids go in there and get indoctrinated and come out liberal.
Yeah.
People are paying out-of-state fees of like $40,000 a year for the UC systems. You stay here in California and you're a resident, you get half price. Fantastic education, but it's going to warp your kid's brain. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with that one other than, teach my children not to fall for it.
Yeah. I don't really have much input on that because I'm not really sure about the dynamic of the education system there versus the education system that we have here. I know that the values are clearly different, and I know that the way that we teach is different, but I know that like the liberal movement to push these topics of the trans community and like the gay community and that kind of stuff like into our education system has been much more rampant over the last several years. And like, I don't know how I feel about it. I consider myself more of a conservative.
Right.
But I also don't think that has anything to do with education.
Absolutely. I don't think it's a political issue. I think they're making it a political issue. To your point, I was talking with a teacher who's at my son's school. All right. So in California, every kid is somewhat taught off of an iPad, right? It's like their own mini computer. So they get their programs, their homework, all this stuff. They're not just watching shows and all that, but they have their own like mini computer with them. And so for her fifth graders, they get a mental health questionnaire every day. How are you feeling? Are you feeling red, blue, green? Give me your comments and try to understand. And from a social worker perspective, that's fantastic to ask the kid, hey, what kind of happened at home? Are you getting bullied? I think that's a great idea. She says she spends an hour a day combing through that and then having to talk to the kids. I'm sorry that your kid had a bad day, but my fucking kid needs to learn how to read and write. I don't care about your kid's problem. She's a teacher, not a social worker.
Wow.
Right? So I'm torn. I think that's amazing. That would have been great for a lot of kids I grew up with. We're not here for that. We're here to learn to read, write, and become a little bit smarter. And we're going to lose some along the way. Let's be honest here. I don't think that should be a teacher's job. You want to do that? Hire a couple social workers to sift through that every day and go talk to all the kids in the red zones. But, with California, and of course I'm biased because I went into the California public system, just unbiased, straight metrics grading on test scores across the nation, California is one of the highest scoring. Just the proof is in the puddings when it comes to the California educational system. It is what it is. So far, the politics injected into academia does not seem to affect the test scores of those students, but I do think it affects the morality, the patriotic nature of people, and I think it's horrible. I think academia should be academia. College is a little different. You're going to take philosophy, you're going to take history, you're going to have to learn about politics and stuff like that. Sure, poli-sci. But I think they should just be separate, and unfortunately, most Californians don't.
Well, I mean, like, I don't like to bring ethnicity into it, but from what I understand, and this may be another misconception, but like a lot of the education in California, especially like colleges like UCLA and that kind of stuff, which has roughly a 25% Asian community. They have like 20% Hispanic-ish, 25% Asian, and then, roughly about the same, white American, whatever, like that ethnic breakdown. Like a lot of the public education or the education, especially the collegiate education in California, is like a quarter Asian. And it's higher than almost anywhere else in the United States. A lot of Asian students go to UCLA or other colleges in California. And so, like, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, or if that's like, maybe I'm just like looking at it from like an outside perspective and seeing it incorrectly and that kind of stuff. But I think that you're right that California does have a pull or a draw for the education system, because it does have like one of the best education systems in the United States. But does it have something to do with the attention that it's gotten?
The pull.
There's a ton of money that's pumped into the education system in California.
Sure.
Much more so than Iowa. You know what I mean? Like,
So points of clarification. Are you specifically saying that the scholastic scoring in California may be higher because they have higher Asian population of students who statistically always achieve better?
Yes, that is definitely one of my points. I
Okay.
mean, like you're drawing a
Yeah.
specifically UCLA, right? UCLA
Sure.
has like one of the highest, if not the highest, Asian ethnic
Demographics. Yeah.
groups or whatever. Like Asian, yeah, the demographic or whatever is specifically higher in the Asian category than it is almost anywhere else in the country for UCLA. Just
Sure.
specifically, not
No, that's a great question, and I can actually answer that from firsthand knowledge. Okay, California has one of the highest Asian population percentages. And then given how big California is and how many people that is, that's a lot of Asians, right? And so
okay.
the numbers are skewed right off the bat with Asian population inside of California represented in their schools. Second factor, every good student either wants to go Ivy League, top 10, and if they don't have that option specifically for undergraduate, they want to go to the public UC system because it's so cheap comparatively. So if you want to go to USC,
Makes sense.
right? And I'm just talking tuitions, not housing.
Not University of South Carolina.
No. Yeah, University of Southern California. I apologize. UCLA's rival. You're looking at, I think it's 35 to 40 grand a year tuition.
Okay.
USC is ranked either below or comparable to UCLA. I'm pretty sure it's ranked lower than UCLA, but there's 9 UC schools. The vast majority of them are ranked comparable or better than USC, and I think its tuition's $22,000 a year. So you're saving
Oh wow.
30 to 40% right off
Yeah.
the bat. I don't know about the housing situations because I never lived on campus. I was a commuter. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you get the best bang for your buck. And then if you're a good student, you get what they call a California Pell Grant, or you can get some scholarships. Like you can come out with a manageable amount of college debt. I recently had a family friend. She got into a number of great schools, and she was leaning toward USC, and she got into UCLA. And I told her, okay, do you have a bias? Do you want to be a Trojan or do you want to go to UCLA? And she was like, well, no, not really. I want to go to the best school. And I went, sweetie, it's undergrad. The name doesn't matter right now. You're just going to rack up an extra $80,000 in debt for no real reason, unless that is a specific major to USC or you're trying to get into a USC postgraduate program. Then it may make a difference for the connection. But otherwise, you're going to get the same, if not better, education for 40% off.
It's like wearing Jordans to go hiking. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the other thing is if you're from out of state and you try to go to the UC system, I think it's 40 to 45,000 a year for tuition alone.
Wow.
So, and people are paying it. Here's the second point of my answer to your question about the Asians. A lot of them are from out of the country.
Yeah.
And they're paying these not only are they out of state, but they're out of country, right? So they're paying these higher rates of tuition, and that's why you're juicing the numbers of so many Asian students. Now, it happens on a compounded basis for their graduate programs.
Well, UCLA's undergraduate programs make up the majority of their students.
Yes, that's true.
They're like 26 or 28% or something. They're more than like white local students.
That is true, but in their graduate programs, Asians, especially depending on the subject, the ones that matter, engineering, they are
Right.
70 to 90% of the student. I went to a USC, it was engineering and information technology graduate ceremony. 70% of them were Indian. I think you got 20% of them were Asian, and there's a couple Russians. And that was about it. That was it.
That's crazy.
I was looking for the blacks, I was looking for the Mexicans, I was looking for, regular white people. Nothing. And I sat through the
That's
whole
crazy.
thing. It is what it is. Now, specifically for the UC system, believe it or not, UCLA is not the highest Asian population. The highest Asian population is UC Irvine in Orange County. and they are topped out at about 70% Asian.
Wow. That's insane.
Well, it's the higher Asian population in Orange County. It's a little bit easier to get into instead of Berkeley or UCLA. And they have a big biological sciences, which is pre-med. So, and if you want to hear more about that, go check out our episode, The Murder-Suicide at the UCI campus. We go a little bit more into the actual statistics about it.
Yeah, I think we're jumping off topic a little bit. Like we're getting like into a whole other category. So I don't mean to interrupt, but I just want to kind of like...
Asians are great at school. That's it. That's our show. Join IAG and myself for part 2 of our California Stereotypes episode coming later this week. Please do us a favor and like, subscribe, share this podcast so we can get some traction. Once I get around to it, check us out on our socials. Combat of Nerds on Patreon, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You know the deal. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next episode.